Hey, it worked.
Perfect. So we are live now.
Yay.
Nice.
Hello.
So after struggling with the UI of Google Hangouts, we've gone live. So I think that the agenda is we're going to discuss the voting system and the rules and all this kind of stuff. The second item of the agenda is to revote on CIP27 trailing commas. We had some issues. Well, people had some issues with the voting rules that I picked following the process. So this is why we are discussing the voting rules first, and then we have the
Just
voting.
hang on, I wanted to share the link with people.
Yeah, right. The link is in Discourse, and it's also in all the Gitter channels I've shared it with. So people should be able to.
I don't see it. So okay.
Yeah, I will share it afterwards.
So it's on the Scala. It's basically we're using the Scala Slip channel, right?
Yeah, Scala Slip and Scala. No, Scala Center.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
And the third one is about CIP27, lazy body initialization. The last time we reviewed this proposal was 3 months ago or so, in July. Yeah, that's 3 months, yeah.
Sorry.
And Dimitri has provided some feedback, has updated the proposal, and we're pretty much going to do a formal review of the design. And there is no implementation, but we will explain that later. So let's focus first on the voting system, and I will invite you to start chiming in and sharing your.
Sorry, I want to go back to what Heather was saying. I also don't see a link to this. Oh, there you go. I think she posted it.
I'm adding it now. I mean, go ahead, don't worry about it. It'll be there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
All right, continue. Sorry, go ahead.
Voting system. After all the discussions and everything, I think we should aim for something simple, like percentage, and we have to reach that percentage, and no rounding whatsoever, and just, I mean, if we end up with 65.6%, we need 70. I mean, we don't get it, and if we have 70% exactly, then it's okay. I don't know. It seems like inventing things like there must be 2 more people than half of the people, or old but 2, or things like that, are just not gonna, and they wouldn't adapt very well with the size of the committee. Should that change?
So you're proposing a simple majority then?
Simple,
just a percentage.
A simple
right?
percentage.
So that would be, for instance, the 2/3 rule. Right?
It could be 2/3 or 70 or 95.
Yeah.
I don't really care that much about the exact digit that we pick.
So my only complaint about the percentages is that I mean, depending on the number of people that show up, like the percentage means different things each time, right? So
Yeah,
like
we should consider all dimensions,
3
right?
people, and then it could mean like 7 people some other time, just based on like people who show up in the meeting.
So
So
it's been suggested to allow people to vote even if they aren't at the meeting, or to vote afterwards. And I'd like to speak up in favor of that, actually. I've been a little uncomfortable with sort of being put on the spot and having to vote like only seconds or minutes after the conclusion of a discussion. I would often, you know, apart from the issue of who's at the meeting, I would actually prefer to have some time after the meeting to think before voting. Mm-hmm. So the allowing everyone to vote after the meeting solves the problem of the size of the committee varying. So I think if we did that, then simple 2/3 would be good enough.
Well, I think for voting hygiene, it's important that essentially everyone votes at the same time. So I think what's not good is that if the majority votes and then essentially there's a 1 or 2 votes that then can decide the thing, knowing that what everybody else voted.
Yep.
I think we definitely can have a rule which says, well, or from case to case, we could say, well, we need more time. Let's give it another day or 2, and essentially hope it gets the votes of everyone. But I think that's perfectly good. But I don't think that, I think we should have a period by which we vote, and there should be no stragglers that then afterwards sort of, because that way you can start to play games, right?
Well, you could just vote by email to Jorge, right? And he,
Sure. Yeah, and I think if you vote before the vote is taken, then that vote counts. I don't think we should enforce a presence at the meeting.
But it needs
Right.
to be signed and with a certificate. Otherwise, I would.
right. I understand. I think it's good to not have that kind of gaming aspect to it as well. But I would like to have a fixed deadline after every vote that we know every time that we can predict how much time we'll have to think about the vote. And
Why don't we allocate 1 week to collect all the
It
votes?
should be case
after?
by case. In most cases, it's completely non-contentious, and
well, we can.
let's do a straw poll and non-binding vote, and then we can see where we stand. Well,
I mean, if everybody votes, then
if
it's
somebody moves,
Jorge is free to release the vote, right? So I don't think there's the 1 week is a max, not a minimum.
so essentially, if you hear somebody to say, "I need more time," then we can decide at that point that yes, we extend the vote by another week or something. In most votes, I guess people would feel happy to vote immediately because it's probably anonymous, and then we don't need to jump through these hoops with the procedure.
So Jorge, can you send me the link that people should be receiving? Because I just shared the link for joining the call. And that's, I mean, it doesn't scale, so.
Yeah. Yeah, you can continue the conversation if you want. So
just to chime in on this, I am with Seth on the idea of people being able to vote, after the meeting. Also agree with Martin that there should be some period of time. It should be maybe decided case by case. So maybe at the end of every being able to vote, I don't know what you want to call these things. When we have these discussions, then normally vote. Maybe we can set the duration, for people to think about it, and a deadline at that point to get a vote back to Jorge. And then that way, I think it's all. I mean, I'm just trying to summarize and say that I agree with everybody, because this way, then also there's no influencing of different votes based on, somebody knowing that they have the tiebreaker or something like this. It should be reasonably. Everybody, it should be the same for everybody, basically, and it should be totally asynchronous as well.
Okay. I think there should be one meta rule, and that rule should be that nothing passes without having at least 50%, or maybe 50% plus one, I'm easy either way, of the total committee members having voted for it. So I think that should be a safeguard, so that nothing could pass with less than 50% of the total vote.
Yeah.
And then we can either, we could either have a higher limit, or we could say, well, that's one limit, and the other is, it has to be, I don't know, 2/3 or 70% or whatever of the votes cast have to be in favor. That could be the other one.
So you're proposing that the quorum has to be 50%, and then the voting rule is
No, not the quorum. The total votes cast in favor has to be 50% of the total membership of the committee.
There are 10 members. You have 6 people attending, 4 vote yes, and 2 vote no. That's 60% of the people present, but it's not 50% of the total, so it doesn't get it.
Yeah.
I think everybody should vote, period.
I think that's why
I agree strongly. I think this sort of two different thresholds is just really, really confusing. Just require everyone to vote. If they don't vote, that's a no.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, I agree as well.
Going from that's how we do our politics.
Wait, it is. But wait, so you're saying then that abstentions are no's?
Abstentions are always no's.
Yes.
Sure, but I mean, it could be that somebody is late to vote. So I mean, it might be better, since we're doing this anonymously, to explicitly say, no, I'm against this thing to Jorge, so that everybody acknowledges. Because I don't want somebody to be on vacation or something and to miss an email and then be marked as a no.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction too, and that's also why I'm for a fixed deadline, like a fixed amount of time after each vote. That way, there's no confusion, and people can go, "Oh, I missed that email that it's now 3 days. I thought it was 7." And I mean, I think it just the simpler the rules and the more predictable they are, I think down the road it's going to simplify our lives.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I mean, as soon as we reach the quorum, or as soon as everybody has voted, if that's the next day, then there's no reason not to release that vote outcome. So, I mean, you get one vote, you don't get to change your mind, obviously. So as soon as Jorge has received everybody's vote, you should publish it, even if it's less than a week.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
I agree.
So basically, to sum it up, we do not vote publicly at all, right?
No.
So, yeah, I agree with that.
So why don't we leave it at 70% then and we're done? Just keep the old rules.
Yeah, 70% of hence all members.
But,
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong per se with the old rules. They just need a clarifying.
All right, so I mean, I'm fine with that too. I don't mind. I mean, so long as it's more than 50%, I'm happy. The only concern that I have is, well, now what do we do? So we do a revote based on this now new requirement to, have a vote from everybody so that we know, each time kind of, the stance. So Jorge would then get whatever we agree, a fixed period of time to collect these votes from everybody, and then announce what happened.
The only problem I see with the 70% rule is that it's very difficult to reach that for various, for the range of the size that we are right now. So I think that for the sake of simplicity, I would aim for 2/3, and we have the same rule for the quorum. So I think that maybe we should have the same for the voting, for the actual vote in the proposals.
Why is that? How many are we?
Sorry?
How many are we, and why is it particularly?
We are
difficult?
9. We are
So
9 or 8?
9, that.
No, 8.
So 8, that means.
6, right?
Yes. But with 2/3 means, yeah. But with 70, it means 7.
No, with 70% of 8 people, that's 6 people.
Yeah. The same as 6 is 6.
We're now,
25.
we are 9.
So
With me, it's
It's more.
if they may,
7 out of 9.
they may, but
Yeah, but I don't find this particularly.
I don't find it particularly. I don't think this is an issue. I'm just talking about simplicity of the rules. The simpler they are, the better people understand them, and the more predictable they are. So I think that also when we are competing the vote and stuff, it's better just to have a clear rule. And I think that 2/3 is a very clear rule, and we achieve our goal of having more than a simple majority, a super majority, while not just choosing 70%, which looks random.
but just one proposal, which would be different from what we had so far. So, but I find it slightly problematic that abstentions are not recognized as abstentions, but abstentions are no votes, because it could very well be that there are questions where some part of the committee don't have an opinion. And they don't have an opinion, but they don't want to say, well, now I don't vote, and it's going to be a no. So then they feel compelled to just essentially do a random choice. The other thing is, what could happen down the road is that you get some members who just sort of phase out, and they wouldn't bother coming anymore and wouldn't bother voting. And probably at some point we would uninvite them, but not immediately. So they could just be there. They would be constant no votes according to our systems, because they wouldn't vote at all, so it would be no vote. So that means that if that happens with essentially some enough members, then it could block the whole decision process. So one possibility to get rid of both of these problems would be to say it has to pass 70% of the votes that are cast. So 70% of the votes have to be yes votes as opposed to 30% no votes. And in addition, it has to be 50% of the total votes. And then we don't need a quorum for the meeting, because, I mean, As long as you have 50% of the total votes and 70% of the vote cast, it's okay.
So so just to clarify, you want to make people have the ability to give abstentions, so therefore whoever is actually voting period remotely, not participating in the meetings, etc., you have to tally those up, and 50% of those have to pass, but then in addition, 70% of the people who...
Right. So let's say we're 9 members like now, and we have a country where 3 members just can't be bothered. I just have no opinion on this whatsoever. And the other 6 are say strong proposal, we're all in favor. According to our current rules, this proposal would fail because it's not 70% of the votes. I think in that case, it's reasonable to let the proposal pass because everybody who had an opinion thought this was good. So you can, of course, adapt. And essentially, if everybody thinks it's good, the others that don't have an opinion can say, well, I also vote in favor because, well, if everybody's in favor. So
I don't know. I think the meeting serves as you know, a forum to convince those other people. And if you can't be convinced that this is a useful addition to the language, and I mean, this is an important discussion, right? If you don't care, I agree. You shouldn't be part of the committee.
Another problem that there might be three members who just don't show up at the meeting and can't be bothered to decide to vote. So
right. Yeah. Then we say quorum isn't reached. We can't vote this time, and you know we have to replace them.
Yeah, I think we have to assume goodwill and a reasonable level of participation.
Right, and so I mean,
it's okay to assume.
I think it's a separate problem.
But I think that also a benefit of this whole thing is, as Adrian says, you know, those who maybe don't have a strong opinion must be convinced. But second, it forces the rest of the people who are for it to convince that person, and it forces progress to happen. If we let people just, you know, not care and abstain from things, then we freeze up the queue again, or you know, there's just issues where with you know, people feeling like their proposals weren't adequately considered. So I mean, I would favor progress over making abstentions easier.
I'm fine with either way to go about it.
So what's the point of having a quorum then? I don't understand that part. I mean, I understand Martin's proposal where the quorum means how many votes have actually been cast for yes or no, but in the other proposal, what does it serve?
No, I don't think it serves any role anymore. No?
It's not about voting. It's just about making sure we have a good group to have a good discussion.
So if there's no quorum, then the meeting doesn't happen, but does the vote happen?
No.
No.
I think you should decide to call the vote based on whether there were enough people in the meeting to actually discuss the problem.
Okay.
If we approve these rules in which every member of the committee has to vote, the quorum doesn't make sense anymore.
No, but quorum makes sense to make sure that the discussion happens. If we decide that we're just going to vote all offline, then 2 people will show up in this meeting and nobody will have a discussion. So the quorum makes sense for us being forced to have this discussion about these language features.
Yeah, right. But we now have we need 2/3 of the people to get the quorum, right? So in this case, why wouldn't a discussion of only 50% of the members matter, and why wouldn't the other members be able to catch up with those discussions and decide afterwards and vote on it?
My personal concern with the quorum thing is that it's another complication. So if you have just one rule that 70% or 66%, whatever we decide, have to vote yes, then it's really that simple.
But I guess Jorge was making the point that quorum should be 2/3, and therefore the vote should be also 2/3. So you only have to remember 2/3.
In that case, I'm happy.
To me, it doesn't matter so long as it's greater than 50%. I think that, you know, the language design decision shouldn't be by simple majority. So I have really no strong opinion on exactly what the percentage is, but it is nice that whatever his proposal means that you keep the same number.
I'm happy with 2/3 twice. Yeah.
So then what happens if the meeting starts and the quorum is not reached? Do we just cancel the meeting and wait for a month?
Try to reschedule.
Yeah.
Maybe you can bump a week and then, you know, do it at normal time the following month.
All right.
Yeah. So I kind of like the idea of having the opportunity to say I don't want to vote when you don't have an opinion. But because that will happen today on the trailing commas. So I will probably say no then, because I will not vote, or I would not know what to vote, and I don't want to just roll the dice. But that might stall the proposal, and that might happen often. So I think I would like to discuss this, having the opportunity or the option, a third option to say I don't have a vote for this.
Can we run a simulation of what that means for different population sizes? I mean, because ultimately, under different rules, abstention just usually means no, right? I mean, like it gives them semantic information, but since it's anonymous, it doesn't carry a lot of information.
Yeah, I just don't think we should make up new voting systems. We should just
no, I know.
There are lots of voting happening everywhere, all over the world, and everyone does it the same way. It's just like you need this many yeses.
But the referendum usually needs a quorum, right? I mean, you need to have a number of cast votes, and if there's not enough people show up,
right?
And no majority, right? So abstentions are in that sense neutral, right? So you just need more for votes than against votes. But we don't have that. We have this sort of absolute thing. So that sort of is, I find rather artificial that in our system abstentions are actually no votes. Whereas usually they are, right?
Yeah, so my only preference in this, I mean, I get the point for abstentions, but my only preference is to favor progress. And so if abstentions can be incorporated in a way where we still make progress on making.
But I think you make progress. Rather, you favor progress if you have abstentions, because in the current system you need 7 votes out of 9 to pass the proposal. So if one person abstains and 1 votes no, that will be like limit, right? So if you have 1 abstention, you already have one out of 3 negative votes, and probably there will be more than 1. I think abstentions will probably mean many proposals will not pass that otherwise would. I don't know if that means progress. Maybe it is.
So an abstention basically means you vote, and the alternative proposal means I vote with the majority. Like, I don't care, but whatever the majority says.
Well, I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but
closer to that intuitively than to.
Yeah, exactly. I let others decide, let's say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of our job on the committee to decide, though, right? I mean, I know that, I mean, I don't have an opinion about all of those, but that kind of goes back to my earlier thing, is that if we don't have a strong opinion about it, for example, the trailing commas thing, right? Like, it is going to have a serious cost to implement stuff like that. And if we say meh, or if enough people say, I don't know, I don't see the benefit, then should we be pessimistic and assume that the cost will be higher than the benefit? I don't know. I think I'm kind of reaching the limit of what I have to, with the insights I have into voting. But I think I see it kind of as different dimensions of quorum and participating in the vote. So, for example, in Belgium, you are required to vote, and if you don't vote, you basically get kicked out of the system, where you can't vote anymore. Once you vote enough, once you don't vote enough times, you get fined every time, and then eventually you just lose that right.
Yeah.
Right, but your vote is not counting as a no, right? Well, assuming it was a yes or no referendum.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I don't. So I'm open to either of those interpretations, but I think what I'm saying is there should be consequences outside of the vote, that if you repeatedly don't participate in the voting process, then you don't belong on the committee.
I agree with that.
And so I think that kind of addresses the quorum issue, and this defining that number. Is basically everybody votes. If you don't vote, then that's a sign that you're not interested to be part of the committee. And then, if we need a tri-state Boolean instead, then let's do that. I'm not against that.
Then we need a new rule for that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, all right, let me just try to summarize, okay? To make sure that I understand, and so Yuli is advocating for some kind of abstention, and that maybe goes towards majority, or I don't know, this has to be discussed. And Adrian says, okay, well, abstentions, okay, fine, but there should be a consequence for abstaining too much. If you're on the SIP committee and you abstain every time, then you shouldn't be on the SIP committee anymore. So maybe we should say, If you abstain 3 times, you're off the subcommittee or something. I mean, whatever. This is the
That's not exactly what I was thinking, but I think it's logical consequence of my argument, but I hadn't taken it that far.
All right, buy everybody on the subcommittee beers and you mail them to the different countries that they live
We're
in.
going to see what happens with Martin who will vote 3 times.
There should just be a list of people that abstain every time, and we, you know, like, well, those people abstained again.
I think the most robust thing would still be to say, to be accepted, it has to be 2/3 of the votes cast and 50% of all votes, and that way you can survive abstentions easily.
Somehow that's still confusing to me, though.
Right?
I mean, I get how it works, but it's not easy to quickly explain to somebody, you know?
But that's fine. I mean, you could just point them to Wikipedia. But I mean, that's a serious advantage, right? It means that this is a time-tested thing that people know about. And we don't, you know, we're not going to run into the crazy corner cases of. And so, Martin, can you give us an example of what kind of the limit of that is in terms of how many abstentions would it take to break the system? So you're saying 50% can abstain, or less than 50% must abstain? Or I guess I should say, not more than 50% should abstain. No. So I guess I'd like to see an example of how many abstentions could you have and still have a useful vote.
The 9 members, any proposal needs at least 5 yes votes, and
why 5? Because it's 50% of 9 and strictly more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
45.5% though.
Well, yeah, but we don't count hot votes, as far as I know.
It needs at least 5 yes votes, and if let's see, if there's 1 no vote, 5 yes votes is good. If there's 2 no votes, then 5 is not good. If you need 6 to 2, and 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so that's easy enough to explain, I think. Then, if you put it that way, I mean, at least 50% of the total committee needs to agree, and there also needs to be 1 more pro vote than an explicit contra vote.
No.
Right.
No. There we have to be more strict, because otherwise the bar has to be higher. So I would say at least 2/3. The pro votes have it with at least 2/3 majority or 70%.
Right.
One or the other.
Right. Proportional.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds reasonable.
All right, well, let's make sure. I mean, I'm okay with this so long as it's clearly explained with like an example somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Actually,
Yeah.
I needed Adrian to get confused there for me to realize that I was also confused about the same thing. So an example works.
Okay.
So long as there's an example and it's explained, maybe we should make sure everybody else is okay with this idea.
Okay. So how do we accept this proposal? Are we just going to vote on this unanimously?
I just want to say this all sounds absurdly complicated to me. Like,
because Adrian made it complicated.
I think this is just more confusion. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's fine. I'm not going to like really make us think about it, but yeah.
I agree that it's confusing, which is why I think it needs an example to explain it. So I'll say yes, I agree with Seth, and I mean I'm fine with it if other people are fine with it. But footnote, it's confusing.
But in this case, we won't have the new rule that Adrian was proposing to limit the abstentions, the personal abstentions of people.
No, I think abstention should be a valid vote. Yeah.
Okay, so in this case, I would just proceed to vote, and I would vote on concrete issues like, for instance, voting that all the committee members should vote in a fixed timeline, or allowing people not to vote, or allowing people to vote, but in a determined deadline in the spot, right? So per case, as Martin proposed before. So I think we have these 3 options, and it would be nice to know what you think.
So wait, just to clarify.
Yeah.
So abstention. So now there are 3 possible votes, right? Yes, no, abstain. but everybody has to respond to Jorge and say one of these three states. So like as we originally agreed earlier, right?
Right.
None of that changed. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I just want to do it section by section because we have several points here. So it's better if we separate the vote and then we come up with all the rules. So then, do we agree that all the people in the committee should vote?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay. And
Yes.
What do you mean? What does that mean? All should
well,
vote?
that means that we will have committee members will have a line or like a deadline after every meeting to cast their votes, and then I will get all the votes and report on the votations on the vote.
Vote is yes, no, abstain.
Yeah, you
You
can
have to-
vote yes, you can vote no, you can vote
But
abstain.
what if you don't hear from one? What
Yeah.
Then it's abstention and
Okay, sure.
no, it's not abstention. It's
But
just that it doesn't reach.
not a good question. Because when they should vote, how do you force them to vote? So, okay.
Well, that's,
I don't
that's the
force them
difference
to
between
vote.
should and must, I guess.
But I don't force them to vote, but we have the quorum rule, right? So if they don't vote and we still have enough votes to reach a quorum, then we approve or reject something. Otherwise, we schedule another meeting too.
But I think it would be simpler to just specify as, people that don't vote count as an abstention. If you have abstentions, you might as well use it, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Makes sense.
I think the more conditions you add, then people wouldn't say, well, is the vote not valid if some people don't vote? To avoid that, you could just say, you must vote explicitly, yes or no, and ideally also abstention. But if you don't vote explicitly, it's counted as an abstention.
Yes, but as far as
I think you just respond. I mean, I don't. Just
You
help
already
me
have 50% of the yes votes as the quorum, right? So if not enough people are motivated to vote yes, that's your quorum.
Yeah.
And then everything else, just you allow the no, and then if enough people are motivated to vote no, they can still block the proposal. But if you're not motivated, you don't influence the vote.
But the no votes should also count for the quorum, right? So it's a yes and the no votes. And the abstention that
Abstentions are basically not
so
counted.
in the same kind of okay. In that case, the 50% rule that Martin proposed is the same as the rule or the current rule that we have right now.
No?
But we have 50 instead of 50.
It's 50% of the total membership, not 50% of the votes present. Of the,
Quorum of 2/3 and a 2/3 majority would give you what, 42%?
No, but we can keep the 50%
Okay,
for the
okay,
quorum.
okay.
But the rule is the same in the sense of as abstentions count and don't count towards the quorum. Then the quorum rule that having at least 2/3 is the same as having a 50% rule that you propose.
yeah, so let's be very explicit. 50% of the eligible members to vote, right?
Yeah.
Needs to vote yes for the proposal to pass. In addition, and I like the way that Wikipedia says it, it's equivalent to the number of votes in favor being at least twice the number of votes against. That's how they rephrased 2/3 vote.
Okay, that's also good, yeah? Should we
It's
just...
just equivalent, basically, right?
So, I propose the proposal. Anyone second?
Anyone what?
Sorry?
Anyone what?
Anyone? So you don't normally say, I propose the proposal, and then somebody has to second. To say, I propose it as well, and then we have to vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
I second
But
it.
you cannot-
I like it.
you
Are we
cannot-
counting abstentions?
I'll third it.
I'm seconding Martin's proposal.
Okay. So all in favor?
Well,
Okay, Seth?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Vote against? That was it a yes or no?
He's just happy we're making progress.
Yes.
Okay, so unanimity.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so now that we have the rules, well, One thing I would like to propose is that we have some rules right now, but they are not set in a stone, so we can change them in the future if another problem comes up.
Sure.
I think this is
Let's just have them laser engraved into Martin's laptop that way.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on then to the vote on SIP 27. So Eugene, please.
Right, so do we start the vote immediately because we all know what's going on, or do we need a summary?
Give a summary of what happened last time, and then we will vote on it.
I think we should have like let's cap the discussion at 5 minutes or something like that. But I would like to say one thing about it.
Yes, right. Yeah. So that's a goal. So Gene introduces what we did, and then we discuss something, and then we vote. Yeah.
All right. So basically, last meeting we reached the conclusion that we've heard and discussed everything that there was to hear and to discuss about SIP27, and so we proceeded to the vote. Well, unfortunately, we have to revote because there's been a misunderstanding, and well, we cannot accept the result of the vote. As a result, well, we started today's meeting with the discussion of the rules to make sure that we're 100% on the same page about how we vote. And well, now I suggest we vote again whether trading commas should be accepted in the language or not. So as far as I remember, we had two potential proposals, one of which was to add trading commas everywhere in the grammar, and another one was to add trading commas only before new lines. So we have two variants. And the previous vote, we actually had a dry state, whether a given committee member is in favor for trading commas everywhere, the first option, for trading commas before new line, the second option, and whether they should be rejected. So I guess we should definitely clear that up now. So what exactly we vote for, and only after we clear this, we proceed with voting.
So do we have a precise proposal now, or do we still have a choice?
Well, I guess nothing has changed, so I suggest we discuss. That's the only option now.
Last time I talked to Dale was more for the like concrete case when only for the new lines of the arguments and stuff. So the new line case. And I think that he would push for that one instead of the other one. And he explicitly said in some comments that he only wanted to apply trading commas in some concrete cases when it's useful for people.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, I would take his last state or the last status of his last suggestion as the concrete proposal that he is suggesting.
Okay.
So I think if that's the state, then we have to push for a more precise definition, because I think it's not acceptable that we vote on something that is as vaguely defined as this. So I think there needs to be a concrete text, what is proposed, before we can vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we can probably have a quick straw poll whether the committee agrees that this is the way to go. I personally would be in favor that if we go that way, we should go that way with the new lines and in the argument lists.
So before I would be in favor of doing that, I would need to know concretely. I mean, I feel like we've like this is like beating a dead horse, kind of, I feel like we've gone I don't know how much more Dale can provide. So what specifically would you like clarified? I was also under the same impression that Dale was currently favoring the after or before new line or after before new lines case.
Yeah, me too.
Well, we have a spec text that essentially says exactly what this proposal is.
Not yet.
No.
So they promised me to update it when we discuss it, but he didn't want to do more work because he found that we were kind of not being specific and clear on what we were asking him. So it's better that we agreed that now we asked him to update the spec and give a concrete full spec of what he's proposing. We could do this, and we could do a third iteration of this concrete.
I don't know. I mean, like, what exactly like, I think we can safely, like, what would be different from saying, well, let's assume that he meant, only before new lines? Like, what more information like would we get out of this?
Well, I wouldn't know what to vote if I don't have a concrete text to vote on, because I wouldn't know whether there are any traps or problems in the proposal if I don't have the text.
Okay.
So,
But the text would basically read, you allow a comma right before a new line if you're in an argument list.
or if it's followed by a closing parenthesis.
Or if it's closing by parentheses, yeah, okay.
I mean, there are a number of different interpretations.
Sure, okay, well, it's an honest question, I just don't know. I'm not super familiar with reasoning about parsing.
Right. Well, about this question in particular.
Yeah. So okay.
Okay.
I think who is so Eugene is championing this, right? I think we're going to have to invest some time to help Dale with polishing this and making it more concrete, because I think it's also fair on his side to say, look, I've invested a lot of work in this already. I need some help to meet your exacting standards.
Yes.
And in addition to that, I mean, or kind of regardless of that, my personal opinion is still, like, no matter what the outcome is of that, I just don't see the utility of it. I understand that it's painful to juggle those commas. I deal with it as well when I'm in SVT builds and stuff. But the same thing, plus plus is also a delimiter that has the same problem. When you're making a long seek of things, with pluses or with colons or anything else, there's so many other ways that this can be annoying when you're refactoring lists of things, that I think addressing the comma one is nice, but I just don't see it as being a language thing. I see it as a tooling thing. I see it as support for refactorings, which can be specific to an SVT build, and IntelliJ could just say, well, just drag around the elements in any list, whether it's delineated with commas, semicolons, plus plus, colon, whatever it is. If you want to edit these things in a nicer way, here's some editor support for that. So for that reason, personally, regardless of whether it's clarified or not, I would be against something that just addresses commas. I think it's too much pain for too little gain.
Yeah, I remain against this as well as I was last time. So that's 2 no's.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're playing that game,
I don't think it's a game. I mean, I'm just being honest. I just want to say people the work that, like.
Now is feedback to Dale. If you say, look, this is not going to pass, there are too many people opposed, then I don't think we should ask him to do the
right. Exactly. That's why I'm saying it now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
My opinion is I have actually flip-flopped now. I would be in favor because I think it doesn't matter, and it would set a very bad precedence if we first have an announcement that we accept and then that we reject. And I think it's better to just let this pass now because of the things that passed last time. And I think provided it does no harm, and that's why I want to see the text. I think the version with the arguments has some scope to actually do no actual harm. But
that sets a precedent that we'll do language evolution by mistakes. If we get caught in them. I mean, I think knowing that it was a mistake, I don't think anybody will blame us for saying, like, trying to honestly, fix it. It's not like we have this nefarious purpose of saying, well, it came out one way and now we're just going to change the rules until it comes out the other way. I think it was always clear that there was concern about changing this aspect of the language because it's such an unknown in terms of the impact it has. Like it has a serious impact of rippling through the ecosystem. And I don't think Dale is going to be like offended by that. It's the proposal. It's not a personal thing. It's just a proof doesn't care whether it's false or true.
Sure.
So I'm not in favor of letting that sway the vote. Although I appreciate the sentiment.
I would like just to highlight that community has received the acceptance of CIP 27 very, very well, and we haven't seen aside from one or two persons, we haven't seen real opposition to trailing commas. Especially.
Okay, well, I mean, then maybe I should do some soul searching and change my vote. I mean, ultimately I want what everybody thinks is best for the language. This is just what I think is best. Yeah, so I don't know.
So I personally, I think it's harmless. I think it would make a lot of beginners' sort of experiences a little less confusing. And for that, I'm in favor of it. I mean, I'm not so much swayed by the fact that we've already accepted it. I'm more swayed by the fact that I think it doesn't really hurt many people, and I think it helps more people who are just getting started. So that's why I'm for.
So, Julia?
Yeah, it's a hard one. So initially I was in favor of it, but only, well, I guess after unpopular version, the one that allowed them everywhere, not just before new lines. And I don't find it that attractive to special case it only for a new line character. That part I don't like. So, but I can see both sides of the story. So it's going to be hard to decide. But I would like to know exactly on what we vote as well. So. Because I just checked now, the Scalalang website has a seat. Actually, it's marked as completed and accepted, but okay, we'll change that for trailing commas. But it mentions the alternatives, but it doesn't actually say which one is the right one. So it's fairly precise, though. It mentions the grammar non-terminals that are changed and ones that are not changed. So. Maybe it's a good start. Maybe it's not a lot of work to make this sufficiently precise.
Just drop the alternatives. No.
So if we take the votes right now, then it still has a small chance to be.
So first we need,
yeah,
because Eugene has to vote and then George has to vote. So do you abstain then, Julia?
Yeah.
So Eugene?
Yeah, well, since I was championing this proposal from the very beginning, and since I voted yes last time, personally I see no reason to change the vote. I think they'll simplify the experience for the new people and, well, for everyone, honestly. And in the restricted version that allows trailing commas before new lines, I think it's harmless enough in order not to create unwanted feature interactions. So that's my line of reasoning. I think it is useful.
Great. So right now, without Josh's vote, the proposal would pass. It would, because we are 2/3 right now.
How many people?
We are like Eugene,
No, we wouldn't.
Martin, and Heather had voted yes, and then against Adrian and Seth. So we are 2/3
No way.
because Julian has abstained.
There were.
No, but if you have 2 no votes, you need twice as many 4 votes.
Yeah.
So who was?
So there are
for?
2 negative votes and then 4.
Oh, there are 4? 4? Okay, so it's a tie.
You were 4.
Okay, I was 4. Heather was 4. Seth was 4.
And Eugene, yeah, that's the
4.
Yes.
Yes. So right now it would pass.
But
4,
no, we
yes.
need a 5th one for the 50% rule.
Yes. No. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Josh has to be 4 and not
Yeah.
abstain and not be against.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, can find out.
So
If he votes, if this is a straw poll, if he votes 4, then we invite Dale to essentially do a concrete spec according to the second proposal, and we vote again in the next meeting. Is that right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. That's
Then we can change our votes because we will say that. Okay. Perfect. So we move on. Before going to Cipriani, Cipriani is going to be very short. I just want to discuss one rule that we missed before, is the fact that how we are going to specify the deadlines for voting after the meetings. So some people said, like Adrian proposed to have a predefined deadline of 1 week. Martin proposed to decide this case by case. So which case or which situation does make more sense to you as a whole?
I would just do it on a case by case, but we can start with one week and modulate. I don't think we need to put this in the rules right now. If the 1 week turns out to be good, then we can at some point codify.
Yeah, I think the most important is to give us freedom to experiment.
Yeah, that's right. But at least I need kind of a maximum limit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a week
let's
is
start
like-
with a week.
Yeah,
Perfect.
No.
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So anyone opposes that? Okay, cool. So let's move on to SIP20. Sebastian is going to review. Dimitri did some changes to the spec. He's basically updated the proposal with his experience in Dotty, and well, basically the scheme that he proposes has been implemented in Dotty for 1 or 2 years now, and it's worked pretty well. So I'm going to let Sebastian to introduce the topic.
Yeah, so in fact there is there is not any change with respect to the latest discussions on the mailing lists, but the text of the SIP was desperately obsolete compared to the discussions. So what Dimitri did here is an update both in terms of the latest discussions and also in terms of the implementation of in Dotty as mentioned. And there are now as much as 6 versions that are compared, that are differences in implementation with slight tweaks here and there. And here I'm talking about the lazy fields, not to be confused with the local lazy vowels. For the local lazy vowels, actually the situation is pretty much a clear cut. It's the elegant local lazy vowels version, which actually has been implemented in Scala C already in 2.12 by Adrian, I think.
I think it was Jason.
Or Jason? I don't know. I don't remember.
I think it was all of us. Team effort.
Okay. So the hardest, the harder part is the one on fields. And there, after a lot of experimentation, it seems that there are 2 reasonable candidates. One is the so-called V4 general, and the other one is V6. So both are faster than the existing implementation in the contended case. But V4 general is 4 times faster than the existing implementation, whereas V6 is only 2 times faster than the existing implementation. So that's for the contended case. However, for the uncontended case, the V4 general is 30% slower than the existing implementation, whereas V6 is on par, up to 5% slower or faster, depending on things. So, so we basically have, the 2 candidates are V4 general, which is 4 times faster in contended case, 30% slower uncontended. V6 is 2 times faster contended case, on par uncontended case. Based on this, the recommendation by Dimitri is, and the one that is implemented in Dotty currently, is V6. Simply because it's a pure win compared to the existing implementation. So that's in terms of runtime performance. There are a couple other considerations, like memory footprints. It seems that memory footprints would basically be unchanged, except if an object has many lazy vowels, the bitmaps will be a bit bigger, but compared to the amount of actual fields, it does not seem like it makes any real difference. What could make a difference is the bytecode size. which is significantly bigger. So if I read the numbers here again, basically we go from 34 bytes for the existing implementation to up to 184 bytes, which is like 5 times bigger.
That's for the getter, right? Yeah.
That's for the gathering of the lazyval. So it's the code generated by the compiler for the lazyval getter. But that's in terms of code size. Yeah. So well, that's for the summary of the situation. Based on what I have read, I would also agree that V6 is the most reasonable one to consider. Yeah, that's about everything I have to say right now.
Okay, perfect. So the only problem with this proposal is that we don't have an implementation for Scalacy.
Right.
So if we approve this, then it means that someone will need to step up and provide an implementation for it, because Dima is not able of doing this, and he has too many things on his day-to-day life to do, and so he told me that he wouldn't be able to do it. So
sorry, can I add one thing to the remarks on V6?
Yeah.
It's using Sunmisk unsafe, which I don't think we can.
So there is a note about this. So the current implementation, yes, uses Sunmisk unsafe, but it is mentioned that it can be replaced by var handlers, or var handles.
Well, but those are, yeah, okay. So then we need to run on Java 9.
Yeah, right. But the question is, I mean, if
so
right. I mean, there might be a period during which we cannot use either.
No.
Yeah, so I don't want to like solve this problem right now. It's an implementation detail, but I would just want to set the parameter that, we can't use Sunmisk unsafe like things. We need to be able to run in like any area.
Yeah, right. But as far as I understand, they are introducing var handles to replace some unsafe functionality. So if
right, but then that means that we can't compile to Java. I mean, okay, so then we have to say, well, the next version that implements this can only run on Java 9. And that's a separate, I think that needs to be a separate SIP, right? Like,
yes,
is Scala 2.13 going to run on Java 8? Or not?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, right now it's implemented using an unsafe, right? So,
yeah, but we can't. We're completely Sunmisk unsafe free right now, and that's a specific choice. So that we, for example, can run on Google App Engine as one example. So and I mean, it's clear that Oracle also doesn't want people to use these things. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's not like I want to find a technical solution to this right now, but that would be one thing that needs to be addressed.
So it sounds to me like it would need an additional iteration by somebody who's actually carrying it forward.
Yes, I guess that's
some people in the author list should comment, and some other people from the community should also say something.
All right, so
Okay.
maybe I can make an organizational suggestion. Maybe sort of this feedback should be perhaps handed to Dima, and just broadly advertising that this proposal lacks an implementer. But I'm a little bit opposed to keeping a proposal. I mean, I would like these things to be hashed out, but I don't want the SIP process to be all about people having, proposals that have no owner, or sorry, not people, but there being proposals with no owners voted on and accepted or approved or whatnot. I think if it doesn't have an owner, or somebody who's not going to carry it forward into implementation, then I don't think we should be voting on it in general, but I don't think that should stop us from providing feedback in case somebody eventually wants to take ownership of this.
In fact, that's what I
Yeah.
thought, and I wanted basically to create an new study in which we call it, I don't know, seeking for an implementation or something like this, in which people can step up and provide implementation. And at that point, when we have the implementation and design, we can decide on the proposal, and we vote on it, and we approve it or reject it. But, in this case, it would make a lot of sense to approve it without the design, and the process doesn't specify this. The process requires design, both a design and implementation. But if this is the case for this proposal, it's going to also be the case for 3 more proposals that Dimitri is doing and will submit soon. So he's told me that he's working on 3 more proposals.
Yeah, but this is not what the process was designed for.
Yeah,
Not
right.
that- I don't want to like shoot down somebody's effort. I just want to point out that the process is designed to help people carry their these changes into the language and into widespread use. Not necessarily, think through something, propose it, and then drop it necessarily, right? So I don't know what to say about those other 3 proposals, but for this one, just given that he's certainly not interested in carrying it any further than he's carried it so far, I would vote for what was I forgot what the state was, something
Dormant.
Dormant. Yeah, we mark it as dormant, and we provide feedback and say it needs an owner to carry it to the next iteration, and that's how we should proceed. That's my vote. Like I said, you guys can, if you disagree with me, please say.
That makes sense to me.
I also want to make sure that it's marked as this proposal is seeking an owner. A lot of work has already been done on it.
Right, because there is no one here interested in providing an implementation for this, I guess.
Nobody's sitting at this table, no, but perhaps there's somebody out there who cares about lazy vowels, and it helps their business somehow, and they would contribute some time to realizing version 6 and dealing with this unsafe problem. It seems like it's not impossible since Dimitri's already implemented it. You have something to reference.
Yeah, I agree. And given the increase of contributors to Scala, it would be good to kind of invite all the people to implement this.
So, Adrian, do you have any opinions on this? Since basically what we would be doing is encouraging somebody to step up and pick up where Dima left off and make pull requests to Scala.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, it was actually on the 2.12 roadmap on the overflow list. Probably like number 1 of the overflow items. It was definitely one of the things that we wanted to do. And the 2.13 roadmap is something that we're still, at least the part that we want to do in turn, like at Lightbend, is something that we're talking about, and this is one of the things that keeps coming up. But yeah, it's never the number 1 thing that we want to work on. So yeah, I think it is something that would be interesting for someone to pick up in terms of size of work and impact that it can have on performance. It is something that we need to do pretty early in the cycle because it's a bit of a silent killer, or like the change of semantics can be surprising, which is also one of the reasons that we didn't push for it in 2.12 because there was enough changing already. Yeah, so yeah, I'm all for the proposal. It just needs to find an implementer, and it needs to not use Misc and safe for us.
Mm-hmm.
So how about this? Go ahead.
Yeah. In that case, the implementation for this concrete change could be delayed until after 2018, right? Because 2014 is targeting the JDK 8, right? The Java 8. So in this case, if you don't need, you cannot use unsafe. It means that you need to wait until bar handles are implemented in Java.
Well, that's assuming that this meeting has the full view of all the possible implementations of this, which I don't think we do. So I think is basically a challenge back to the next author saying, hey, can you come up with something that has good performance and that is something that we can actually implement?
Okay, so in this case,
again, I don't think we should discuss that here.
So we're not only looking for an implementator, we are looking also for someone who can provide another design which has the same benefits and the same performance improvements, but without using some SunMist. So
yeah,
it's
so
like,
ideally it should be on Java 8, and it should not use SunMist and Safe.
okay.
So just to simplify one step further, it means it needs another iteration, but it needs another owner and another iteration.
Yes.
Another
But, I mean,
iteration.
I think we should be clear about the the restrictions that we already know about, which I just mentioned.
Apparently, Dimitri is following the.
Of course. Hi, Dimitri.
Because he's bringing me to bring to my attention that version 4 does not use SunMist and Safe.
Okay.
So, and indeed, now that I have it under my eyes, it's basically using the atomic integer and the atomic objects things. So that's the one that is basically so the V4 general either it's also it's also atomic things. So that one has the 30% slowdown in the non-contended case, but the good news is it's 4 times faster than the other. So that might be an avenue to explore more in detail if we really forbid SunMist and Safe.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah, I really don't think I'm asking for the impossible here.
No, I don't think so either. I just wanted to
It requires benchmarking. Yeah.
that if people want to contribute, they know what we are expecting from them.
Okay,
Yep.
wait. So just one more clarification now with that information. It sounds to me then like Dimitri says, well, hey guys, actually I gave you 6 choices. Choice number 4 solves all problems. So what about that one? I don't know. Again, I'm advocating for making progress.
Yeah. No, sure. I don't know. I mean, honestly, like I would have to study version 4 to have an opinion about it, but I guess it meets the criteria that I can think of up front.
So what do you think, Julian? You've been also reviewing the...
Yeah, so I basically read the version that was sort of 2 hours before the meeting up on GitHub, which had only 4 versions. So 5 and 6 appeared about an hour before the meeting, so I didn't read those. At that point, the recommendation was version 3, which was simple. Yeah, I think we need another iteration. I mean, there's a lot of good work there, and I like that it takes performance into consideration, but I wouldn't be too hung up on those numbers because we're talking about initialization. Everything else is the same as before. So once the variable is initialized, it's the same cost as in the old scheme. So
Right.
I don't think that's a very common path, actually. So I would favor something that works, of course, on Java 8, or basically doesn't have huge requirements, that runs on Google Apps and so on. And maybe not too complex either. So yeah, V4 might be that one. But yeah, so I think it's a little bit too last moment of the versions that have been proposed.
Okay, so we give it another iteration then. We discuss in more detail these things. We will put this under review, and if there's no change of mind from Dimitri, then we will look, or we will advertise, call for an implementator or an owner of this.
So you're saying that we kick it to the next meeting and we discuss it a second time?
So let's give it another iteration because Julian wanted to discuss.
But my understanding iterations were that the author addresses feedback, and then we discuss the delta since the previous meeting. But it sounds to me like there's not going to be any delta, right? So
could I suggest then one delta? So I think that the author, well, if we identify one, should offer one version that he's putting forward, and then as related work or alternative designs, they can still stay in the document because I think they're valuable. But I think you should sort of say, this is the one that I propose. And I tried, by the way, I tried 5 others. And of course, feedback is don't use Sun, misc unsafe, and have it run on Java 8.
Yeah, so that's the feedback, and then the other feedback was to kind of implement V6 without unsafe, as far as I understood from Adrian, right?
I think just what Julian said, basically, just in general, pick one and make sure it runs on Java 8 and doesn't use some misc unsafe.
Right.
I have to drop off in a couple of minutes, so if there's anything else you want me for, let's move to that.
Yeah, let's finish
I just want to point out that this document actually picked one. It was one that doesn't fit the criterion, but I mean, I just don't want the discussion that just happened to have to make an impression that this document did not pick one and just proposed 6. It was clearly advocating for 6 in view of all the experiments on the other ones, right?
All right.
Okay, so in this case, we're gonna ask for feedback. If we don't get feedback from the meeting, then it means that it's not interested or cannot handle the like this. Then we will give it 2 months. If there is no response before that, we explicitly call for a new owner of this. I would do it this way, and this is how I think we should do it in the process.
Fine with it. I'm good.
Okay. So do we all agree on this?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, guys, so we're finished. Thanks for your time. It was a good meeting, and see you next time.
Thanks, Jorge.
Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.